Hello, and welcome back to another case update with Liberty Justice Center. I'm Randon Steinhauser, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Buck Dougherty, who's with the Liberty Justice Center and is going to give us a lot of information on multiple cases that LJC is working on right now. So, Buck, thanks so much for joining this conversation today. And why don't you start by giving us a little bit of background on you and your professional career and what led you to be on the team with Liberty Justice?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Randon. So I've been practicing law for about 20 years. I'm a litigator, both appellate litigation and trial litigation. And a few years ago, I started doing more constitutional law and really enjoyed it and got into a lot of interesting First Amendment cases. And back in, I guess it was 2021, I knew about Liberty Justice Center and knew their great reputation and kind of the neat and interesting cases that they were bringing. And certainly the Janus case is extremely important that they won in 2018 at the Supreme Court. So I really wanted to do more of that work and join Liberty Justice Center back in October of 2021, kind of the height of the pandemic. President Biden had just issued his edict that the OSHA vaccine, where large employers would have to, their employees would have to be vaccinated. So within a month, we filed a lawsuit in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals on behalf of our client, Brandon Trosclair. That was an important case, got the first nationwide injunction stopping the OSHA case. And so, and then a couple months later, we were at the Supreme Court. And although we were not one of the parties selected to present our argument, we were there with a lot of media sessions. And ultimately, the Supreme Court upheld the nationwide injunction that we got on behalf of not only Brandon, who owned several grocery stores in the South, but on behalf of 80 million people that OSHA vaccine, which was illegal, and the Supreme Court said as much, it would have affected that many people. So I've been here almost 2 years, and it's been a great place, and I'm really excited about all the work we're doing.
Yeah, what a great way to start on the team with that victory there. So I love working with Liberty Justice because you all are really the tip of the spear when it comes to defending constitutional rights. And we're going to talk about a couple of cases, but I want to start with one that was just ruled on by the Supreme Court. And I know Liberty Justice Center, with you and your leadership, submitted an amicus brief in this case. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Tyler case, the ruling that came down, and why Liberty Justice Center decided to get involved?
Yeah, so that was the Tyler case that came down yesterday, as you mentioned, Tyler versus Hennepin County. Geraldine Tyler was a 94-year-old grandmother, and she was living in a one-bedroom condo in Minnesota. Like most senior citizens, she needed to go to a more senior-type community, and her property taxes were paid up. But when she made the move over to the senior community, her property taxes got behind on the condo where she wasn't living, obviously, and it probably amounted to a couple $1,000s. Well, long story short, Hennepin County eventually foreclosed and sold her condo to pay for the unpaid property taxes. They also tacked on interest and penalties, which they're allowed to do, and it came to about $15,000. Well, they sold her condo for $40,000 to satisfy a $15,000 debt. And the time period had elapsed, the redemption period it's referred to, where a property owner can try to get their property back. And they basically said, we're going to keep the $25,000. We're not going to give it back to you because you don't own it anymore. That was essentially their legal theory. You don't own the property anymore, so it's ours. So they kept the $15,000 that was rightfully theirs through taxes and so forth, and kept the extra $25,000. And the problem with this case is this is not, you would think this is kind of common sense, but it's not like a one-off type issue. You have counties and governments and cities and so forth across the country getting very aggressive with, even though there may be a minor infraction of some sort, they will take, whether it's cars or a real property in this case, and take the excess value on top of the punishment. So this was what's referred to as a home equity theft case, and that's basically what the county did. The Supreme Court, which we know there's so many stories now about the Supreme Court that they're always opposing one another and so forth. It was a 9-0 decision. So this was a slam dunk. And although Liberty Justice Center did not represent Ms. Tyler directly, we did file an amicus brief with the court, a friend of the court brief, as well as some other organizations. And we wanted to point out that, when you go back to common law, to English law, which is where we get our principles that we have today, that this never happened. And we even cited in our brief the Magna Carta. So we were really pleased to see Chief Justice Roberts in the opinion. He even went back, I think, 1215 and referenced the Magna Carta, that nowhere has this ever been the law. Yes, the government can take, it can take the property, sell it, but if it gets surplus proceeds, you got to give it back to the homeowner.
Right. It seems like such a basic principle. Oftentimes you'll hear folks say, taxation is theft. Well, we can debate that, but this was actually theft, right? This was actually the government taking something that did not belong to them. So tell us about the final ruling and what's to be expected. Anything next?
Yeah. So at the current stage, it was at the Rule 12 stage. So the lower courts basically said, you have not presented Ms. Tyler a case that can even satisfy a claim. So they just dismissed it outright. And the Supreme Court said she's clearly made out a cause of action under the Fifth Amendment takings clause. This is clearly a taking by the county in violation of the Fifth Amendment. So it reversed completely. I'm assuming at this point, Hennepin County will be shamed enough to reach some type of settlement agreement with Ms. Tyler, but essentially the case goes on unless, of course, they do settle it. But we were certainly happy to be able to file our amicus brief with the court in support of Ms. Tyler. This is a great ruling for private property rights, and it will reverberate, I think, throughout the country. And states are going to have to think twice about trying to do, enact these types of laws.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for that update. Okay, so the next case that I want to make sure we have an update on is one that we expect a hearing coming up on July 19th. And I would love for you to give us an update on the First Amendment case that you're working on as it relates to unions, big labor, and aggressive policies being pushed down on workers.
Yeah, so that's the case. ABC of Michigan is our client, which is a trade association in Michigan. They have members in the construction industry all across the state, and we have sued Jennifer Abruzzo. She is the general counsel for the National Labor Relations Board. And in that position, she serves as a prosecutor, very similar to Merrick Garland, for example, who is the United States Attorney General. And so her job is to prosecute unfair labor practices before the National Labor Relations Board. And so she can't have a charge herself. A union or a business or so forth would have to make a charge against a private company. And then it would be her job and her office's job to prosecute that. The board would make a determination, which then could be appealed and reviewed by a court, by one of the federal courts. So what she has been doing, and she has, I think it was in 2021 when she took office, appointed by President Biden. And it was very controversial, her appointment, for a number of reasons. But primarily, she has been super aggressive and very pro-union, and she has started issuing these memos and posting on the website. And these are 50 plus memos that she has issued over the last couple of years, to the point where people even refer to her in articles as the memo writer. That's her new nickname. And so she is essentially, our case is, she's going outside the system of her normal independent prosecutorial duties to try to manipulate policy and manipulate employers and unions and employees. Well, she's not trying to manipulate unions because she's 100% pro-union. And this creates very much a lot of uncertainty. Nobody knows what the law is. And so, for example, the memo in our particular case was what she refers to as the captive audience meeting. And for 75 years, including today, the law has been that a business owner or an employer may give their opinion on what they think about unions to their employees while those employees are at meetings, at work. Unions can do the same thing. They have access to the employees as well. They can make their case on why they think employees should organize. Businesses can make their case. Okay. And she wants to take away that right of the employer under the First Amendment, 75 years of good law, to be able to simply say to their employees their opinion. And they can do that, the law has been, as long as they don't make any threats to their employee, or as long as they don't say, we're going to give you a benefit. For example, if you don't join a union or you don't organize a union, we'll pay you more or something like that. But they can give their opinion. That's always been the law. And now, through her memo, she has said she's going to go before the board and she's going to prosecute a case if there's a good case that comes up. And she's even going out and speaking and trying to drum up business, which is not what a prosecutor who's independent is supposed to do. You're not supposed to go out and drum up business on an unfair labor practice so you can then go and prosecute that case before the board to try to make your point. Mm-hmm. So our point is simply to enjoin her memo. And, we believe we made a good argument. Her statutory authority does not give her the right to do what she can do. We're not saying she can't prosecute. In fact, we're saying go prosecute, because we'll deal with that in the court system. But stay out of trying to put your thumb on the scale for unions and trying to manipulate the system outside of normal enforcement process. So Jimmy Green is the president of ABC Michigan. He's a very outspoken individual. He speaks all over the country, and really a great client. And we've had a wonderful relationship thus far with ABC of Michigan. We filed a motion for a preliminary injunction. General Counsel Abruzzo, which we knew, filed a motion to dismiss, and that's going to be heard on July 19th in the Western District of Michigan in Grand Rapids. So we look forward to that opportunity.
Yeah, excellent. And so ABC of Michigan is similar to many trade organizations. They're in the construction industry. And right now they're just trying to work with Liberty Justice Center to protect those First Amendment rights. And so you guys are definitely doing a great job in representing that. And we look forward to hopefully doing another update on this case as it gets closer, or right after that July 19th hearing, to update folks on the outcome. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we look forward to that. Thank you.
Okay, so our third and final case that we're going to do just a quick update on is one that I personally find super fascinating, because we all remember the early days of COVID, where there was so much fear, there was so much unknown, and we quickly saw that fear be taken advantage of by the government and oftentimes unelected bureaucrats. And I think this next case is such an example of the fear of others being an infringement on our free speech. So tell us about the Foley case and Denise Foley and what's happening to her, or what has happened to her in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and Denise is a great client. We're really fortunate and pleased to be able to represent her. She was the communications and training director for a public hospital, Massachusetts Health in Massachusetts. And this was during the early part of the pandemic, and at the end of 2020, on her private Facebook account, while she was away from work, and she was in a group in her city, the Milton Facebook group, someone had posted that he had received a letter from someone that they're supposed to now start turning in their neighbor if they see their neighbor is not wearing a mask. The governor at that point had issued a mandate that everyone had to wear a mask out in public. And this other individual who was part of this private Facebook group said this, I just got this letter. And Denise responded, and we have what she said. And basically what she said is, I think this is crazy. Why are we supposed to spy on our neighbors and turn in our neighbors? This seems like an authoritarian, dictatorial type society, and it's makes no sense, and so forth. Denise, even though it was a private Facebook account, as most people will do, she had her place of employment listed there on her Facebook account. And word got back to her employer, Mass Health, and they immediately put her on paid leave and suspension to do an investigation, and eventually terminated her. And they made no bones about it. They said, we think that based on, even though this was your private Facebook account, based on what you do, and based on your title, that you can't say what you're saying in your private Facebook account. And so they terminated her for that reason and admitted it. And we have sued Mass Health as well as some of their officials. The court has already ruled partially in our favor and partially against. They did determine that there had been a First Amendment constitutional violation. You can't fire a public employee for what they do on their own private time in terms of speaking under the First Amendment. As it's been said many times, public employees do not check their First Amendment rights once they go into their public employer. So that's number one. So that was a good win. But number two, they said there's no case on point. So in terms of suing the officials for money damages, we're not, I'm going to dismiss that aspect of the complaint. So the complaint is allowed to go forward on declaratory relief and injunctive relief. We're trying to enjoin Mass Health from doing this, but we're also seeking compensation for Denise. She was terminated. They admitted why they terminated her. She had rave reviews. She was an excellent employee, and she has suffered immensely just based on a simple private Facebook post that she made that a citizen can make. I mean, that's what the First Amendment means. So right now we're in discovery, and we look forward to trying that case possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that's most frustrating just listening to this situation is that we know that this is not isolated. We know that other individuals were fired for speaking out against mandates or just practices that they did not agree with personally. And so I think this is a really important case that most Americans could identify with in some way or another, right? It might not have been them, but someone they knew lost their job for whatever reason during the pandemic, likely linked to fear over, government overreach in terms of mandates, vaccination mandates, et cetera. So we look forward to keeping the audience updated on this case as well. I know it's a hot topic, and hopefully Denise and Liberty Justice Center will come out with a victory in this particular case.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you, Brandon, for your time, allowing us to kind of give these case updates.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for everyone for watching. These are our hopefully regular case updates where we're updating our audience on the different things that Liberty Justice Center is working on, multiple cases, all different areas of protecting your constitutional rights. So check out libertyjusticecenter.org. It's right here on the screen. Learn more about our team, our organization, and the ways that we can come and help you in your fight to protect your liberty. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.